Hi guys, this is Ricky with draftmanager.com. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of our new tool, the DVP projection tool. It's like nothing else you'll find on the internet, so let's get into it now. This is kind of a little snapshot of our optimizer, and from there we're going to go to our DVP projections. And this is loaded for tonight's game for the video purposes. So we're going to go ahead and pick a game tonight. One of the first ones maybe to look at for a good example would be Boston at San Antonio. We're right into the players for Boston and who will be covering them, and they default to point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, so on and so forth. And we've got their height and weight right next to the players, so you can see logistically who makes sense to cover who. And it's loaded in with our projections, and we can come over here and we can see the last 10 games and how many minutes the players averaged, and then the minutes we're projecting them at tonight. And this will change throughout the day. It's kind of a default number with an algorithm until we get injury information and kind of look at point spreads and adjust that throughout the day. So by the middle of the afternoon, excuse me, to the early evening, we've kind of zoned in on better minute projections. And minutes is a huge thing in NBA. The closer you can get to a guy's minutes, the better your projections are going to be. Then we have the last 10 increase or decrease fantasy points per minute. And why I think fantasy points per minute is such a better number is because it takes out double overtime games or anomaly games where Anthony Davis plays 6 minutes and gets hurt, or DeMarcus Cousins gets ejected. If you look at a 10-game sample of fantasy points per minute or fantasy points per game, and somebody who's very expensive got thrown out in one of those games early on, well, it looks like his production's gone down. So this really isolates the fantasy points per minute. So we start in by leaving Kawhi Leonard on Jay Crowder, but we're just, for this video purposes, we're gonna say, all right, Kawhi's gonna cover Avery Bradley tonight. Because Kawhi can basically cover the point guard. He usually covers basically the best player on the other team outside of the centers. So we're going to say, all right, Popovich wants to put Kawhi on Bradley tonight. I've watched the tape. And we at Draft Manager go back and watch the game, every basketball game over the last 2.5 years. And we have written down the information. So we know basically in starting lineups who is going to cover who. And we pay a lot of defensive, we pay a ton to defensive matchups. And then we put that into our database, and every player is assigned a defensive a DVP number, and it's essentially a weighted system. So say you're a small forward and you go on a road trip and you have to play LeBron, Carmelo, Durant, and then and you give up 50 fantasy points a game for those 3 games. Well, have you done a bad job? Or have you just played the 3 best small forwards in the NBA? So we look at a player's fantasy points per minute coming into the game, and then their fantasy points per minute coming out of the game. And again, that takes away anomaly games where guys only play 15 minutes, or guys get into a triple overtime game and score 70. So it really isolates how well they did on the court while they were on the court. So Kawhi's a perfect example of we'll watch both Jay Crowder and Avery Bradley's projection change when we move Danny Green. And so we see Jay Crowder is now projected at 22.9 on FanDuel. We're going to put Danny Green on him, and he goes up to 23.8. And now we're going to switch Kawhi Leonard onto Danny Green, who is also a good defender. What might be better here is to do Kawhi Leonard on Marcus Smart. So we'll put Kawhi over here on Marcus Smart. And Marcus Smart's at 23.7. And now he's covered by Kawhi Leonard. He goes to 21.9. And then you can come in and adjust the minutes. You're like, all right, I think Smart's going to play a little bit more tonight. So-and-so's going to be out. We throw him at 37 minutes, and we watch his projection change. And then we look at a guy like Avery Bradley, and we say, man, 14.5% better in the last 10. He's really hot. I'd like to give him a 10% boost. You type in 10 and watch his projection change. And then we come over here and we've got the floor and the ceiling. And most sites will give you a floor of their lowest game and a ceiling of their highest game. we take out situations with starters where they've been hurt, and we do an average of their lowest 5 games for their floor and an average of their highest 10 games for their ceiling. So it's a better indicator of what their really floor and ceiling is, and then you can weigh that in. You're like, all right, I really want to build a safe cash model this week, and I want guys with higher floors. So I'm going to go ahead and put in Al Horford, his floor at 10% and his regular projection at 90%, and we'll see his projection change from 34.1 to 32. Now, if he's still getting picked, you're like, wow, I've even weighed in some of his floor, and he's still getting picked. I really like the chance that he's going to put up value tonight in a cash game. Or you could come in and you can say, we'll scroll down to the other side so we can see San Antonio here, and we can look at Kawhi or LaMarcus Aldridge or somebody like that, and you're like, I'm really looking for a guy who's got a ton of potential. Pau Gasol has had some monster games here. Let's weigh in his ceiling at 20%, and we'll watch his projection go from 32 to 37. And it's like, yeah, for my GPP, this guy's got a ton of upside, and I'd like to see what he'd be able to do. And then you can switch that out, and we go through. You can go through. This is for your own personal database. This will be only for you. It'll go towards your optimizer. Another kind of cool team to look at, Sacramento, Houston. We can come over here. When Milwaukee plays, you can kind of instinctively see Giannis is playing tonight. Giannis is 6'11", and you look at the other team and you're like, who could possibly cover him? And you sometimes can tell when a guy like that will go off. The Knicks cause a ton of matchup problems for other teams. And I think LeBron is not playing tonight, so you'd want to get into Cleveland and Memphis. Marc Gasol is also out as well. So over here, a lot of times Koufos will cover 4s and DeMarcus 5s and so on and so forth. Is DeMarcus going to, Ryan Anderson tonight, although they're similar in size, can DeMarcus Cousins covered Ryan Anderson? You instinctively might say that's a really good matchup. And for Ryan Anderson. So on the flip side, you'd come down here and you'd say, all right, Ryan Anderson covered by DeMarcus Cousins. He's done 6% worse. I think he's going to do a little bit better tonight. Maybe we'll give him a 5% boost, improve his projection that way. Take it out and you use our default. So after you've made all the different adjustments that you want, you're going to update your optimizer. It says your projections have been saved into our optimizer. Then you're going to view the optimizer. You can come into our optimizer and immediately run hundreds of lineups. Here are the projection models to give you a quick little synopsis of them. DM projections. A lot of sites will say use our pros model, and you're getting a model, and the model is okay. I could create 20 different models that would be decent to the average player. The DM projections are the exact same projections that a baby girl uses, professional DFS player. We have a group of people, we work on this all the time. You're getting the same projections that he's getting for the same cash lineups. Now, I've taken these other players' models, these other sites that have their, use so-and-so's model, and I've played them in cash games that night, and you're not getting the same players. I saw a Roto Grinders thread about somebody who gave away all their best NFL information, and they're like, here are the top 10 plays, and then the guy won $1 million in a tournament, and he didn't have any of his top plays in there, and I see that all the time. So a lot of these sites are giving away misinformation, and over here you are absolutely getting the same lineup. Come by and play a baby girl, and you'll see, we're right on the same player pool as what we're projecting. So this is the DM model, and it changes throughout the day. DVP projections use only the player that are guarding you as for adjustments. If you're a bench player and don't have anyone guarding you, we use Vegas. The Vegas projection, don't use any DVP, defense versus position, and you can get that one. And then we go DVP plus Vegas, and this will isolate a lot of times guys with really good matchups on higher scoring teams. And the DVP information you'll get from other sites is completely off, and this is kind of why we started doing it the way we did it. It's because you will have a database, and it will say, a really good example was a couple of years ago for the San Antonio Spurs. If you played them, they had Marco Bellinelli, Manu Ginobili, and Danny Green, all playing shooting guard. Those are all shooting guards. and they averaged about 70 minutes a game. Now, you can't have 70 minutes worth of shooting guards a game, but if you're logging in information, because obviously some would play the small forward and they'd overlap and play together. But if you're logging that every time you play the Spurs, their shooting guards go nuts, well, it's because they're getting 70 minutes. And so these sites that are tracking that, again, it's automated, and this is how we started doing it, and then we saw the flaw in it. And you'd see some teams didn't have a listed center, so basically, they would have the worst DVP versus centers. And so that information's just off. And so we decided that starters average about 28 minutes a game in the NBA, and starters cover starters at the beginning of each half. So if you were going to do a DVP, you'd have to go back and figure out who covered who. And that's the best way to actually do a defense first position, and that's exactly what we do game in and game out. And after you've done that and you come back, you've got my projection. You can come in, you can calculate, top 2, 5, 10, 100 teams, whatever you want. In seconds, it scrolls right over here. This is a team you could run out tonight. Again, we haven't made a lot of adjustments to the back end, so I assume this number will, these lineups would change. But yeah, that's how you do it. You can export it to FanDuel, DraftKings, and you can go that way. So really appreciate you guys coming by. I know this got a little bit lengthy. I start talking about numbers and stuff like that, and I can't get enough. But I appreciate you coming by. Visit draftmanager.com. Have a good day.